Meanwhile, back in the world of everyday materials, our horizons have been expanded in a different way, by a new material that many describe as among the greatest innovations to emerge from the 20th century. There's a long history of combining materials to create completely new ones. They're called composites. For example, wattle and daub, concrete, plywood, as well as more exotic combinations of metals and plastics. But there's a spectacular new composite which is allowing industrial designers to completely reinvent some objects and even change lives. It's called carbon fibre composite. Nicky Maxwell is 17 and has his sights set on Paralympic glory. Nicky has a single below-the-knee amputation. His athletic career has been transformed by carbon fibre composite in the form of his remarkable high-performance running blade. But it's not just in athletics where carbon fibres had an impact on prosthetics.
This is the first prosthetic that I had. You'll notice obviously it doesn't have a foot on it of any kind.
Here's one with a foot though.
This was World Cup 2006.
Right.
The ankle here is still rigid, but the foot is made out of a rubber that does have a bit of flex in it, so it's making your gait a bit more fluid. And I guess the first time that I got a non-rigid ankle would have been this, and inside this foot there are a few different C-shaped curves of carbon which enable the foot to compress and bend in different directions.
Right, so this has got carbon fibre in it.
So this has got a little bit in it, yeah.
Nicky's racing leg is made entirely of carbon fibre composite. It has boosted his performance beyond all recognition with its winning formula of lightness, strength and rigidity, all tuned to put the perfect amount of spring in Nicky's step. So what does that blade give you that other prosthetics don't?
Well, fundamentally what you have to appreciate is how much work your lower leg, particularly your calf, does when you're walking or running. So your calf really, it generates a lot of power. So a blade like this, which is effectively a spring, it really helps to simulate that. So that movement of landing on your foot and really pushing off, the spring will compress and take in that energy and then push back, and it gives it back out again.
With his blade, Nicky can look forward to enjoying athletics in a way that only a few years ago would have been impossible. But this is only one in a long line of applications. Carbon fibre composite has become the material of choice whenever weight, strength and performance are important. Whether that's snowboards, tennis rackets or golf clubs. And carbon fibre has completely replaced steel in the bodywork of racing cars. When the Bloodhound supersonic car attempts to rocket to a 1,000-mile-an-hour land speed record, the driver will sit in a carbon fibre cockpit. And in aeronautical engineering, the future's carbon too. The latest airliners use carbon fibre to reduce weight and save fuel. So what's the secret to carbon fibre's success? It's lightweight and strength. This is the stuff that makes carbon fibre composites strong. It's individual strands of carbon filaments, incredibly fine. Finer than hair. But per weight, 10 times stronger than steel. It doesn't look it, I know. But I've taken the length of it here, and I'll show you what I mean. Let's see if I can get it to take my weight. So there's a small strand of it. Got a little swing here. There we go. Attach that there. Get through there. I know what you're thinking. I don't weigh very much, but actually I do, surprisingly enough. Can it do? Right. Now the lifting legs off the ground. Here we go. Yes! No problem at all. So that's pretty impressive, isn't it? I mean, tiny little threads of carbon, finer than my hair, holding my whole weight. It's incredibly strong, but it does have one defect. It is, after all, a thread, which means that although it's very strong in this direction, as we've seen, if you push it, well, it just bends all over the place. So if you really want to replace steel and metals, make engineering objects out of it, you need to find a way of stopping those fibres from bending. And the way to do that is to cover it in plastic. And a particular kind of plastic works really well called an epoxy, and that's what it looks like if you just take a bit of epoxy. And epoxy in itself isn't that strong. In fact, it's very brittle, unless you reinforce it with carbon fibre. I'll really have a go at this. Take my word for it. It is the business. Making a composite component is pretty straightforward. This tape has thousands of carbon fibres running along its length. Once I've wound it around this cardboard tube, all I have to do is coat it with a layer of epoxy plastic. And when that epoxy sets, we get this. A tube that's light and very stiff. But it's not yet strong. And the reason for that is because as we wrapped it round the mandrel, all of the fibres are aligned in one direction. So it's strong across the circumference, but it's not strong in tension, which is what happens when I bent this. So the way to sort that out is to come back to this. If I add another layer of carbon but wrap it in the other direction, now the tube is encased in a crisscross of fibres. So when you do that several times, back and forth, you can build up strength in many different directions. And in fact, that's the key to carbon fibre composites, is to work out where your stresses are and to align the fibres to withstand the stress in that direction only. So you're only putting in the material you need where you need it. And once you've done that several times, you end up with something like this, which is a bit heavier, still incredibly stiff, but this time really strong. I think we need to do the standard weight test. Let's see if this can take my weight. Yep, no problem. That gives designers almost complete flexibility, building an extra strength where it's needed, but saving on weight where it's not. One perfect illustration of that is the new generation of high-performance racing bikes. This is the latest carbon fibre bicycle frame as used by professional cyclists in races like the Tour de France. They're incredibly light, weighs only 800 grams. It's hard to get a sense of what 800 grams is. It's a sort of the weight of a bunch of bananas. So let's see if it's, yeah. So that's how light it is. It's head-scratchingly amazing. And what the material allows you to do is pare the whole thing down. So down here, these struts, they look flimsy, but they're not. They're stiff, they're strong. Along here, where you perhaps don't need so much strength, you can actually physically deform it. It's a wonderful material which gives industrial designers complete flexibility. Carbon fibre is fast becoming the ultimate construction material in the everyday world. But there are